Let's talk about the Caribbean. You're supposed to be out of Jamaica by now, but you're back. How did you get back here?
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And I think when we look at Africa and its challenges, it's one thing. But when you look at the Caribbean and its subtle, semi-civilized first world mindset. I mean, when you're coming here, you think you're going to be meeting progressive people who... Gavi is coming from here. Mali is coming from here, from this region. So you'd expect some certain amount of sensitivity to geopolitical, historical disadvantaging. But to have black people now sitting in positions of authority and reinforcing with power and force the draconian laws of colonialism, unbelievable. So I came in here because I was avoiding the visa ports, both in Europe, Middle East, and in America. I said I would get to Jamaica and use a non-visa route. And the non-visa route for me was either Johannesburg, Paris, as long as I was going to be remaining in the airport for about 6 hours, then connect Paris, Cuba, Kingston. Or I would have gone through, London, non-starter. Miami, non-starter. New York, non-starter, so I opted for Sao Paulo, Panama, into here. Okay. After getting here, the conference finished on Friday. So Saturday there was no flight out. So I opted, let me get a flight into Dominican Republic, because then I could connect quickly into Guarulhos, and from Guarulhos straight into Sao Paulo, and I'm out of here. And to my shock and dismay, I was detained in Dominican Republic for 4 days.
4 days?
Denied food, water to bath and to drink. I was denied a bed to sleep. I literally sat on the bench for 4 days. I bought 4 tickets to go back home, and all those tickets expired with their instructions that go and get something like this, like that, go and I make an internet, phone my wife and phone people, buy tickets, I come and bring them. No, the airline does not want to carry you. Next story, Panama wants a visa, you are supposed to go there. But I don't need a visa according to the documentation. Brazil needs a visa. Ultimately, no, it's our law that we must take you back to the country where you came from. Then you can restart your trip from there because you're using 2 different flights. So you can, some stupid little story that is unheard of. And only to come back into Jamaica and be locked in for another 2 hours plus $400 to buy a new visa to come back into the country. So as of today, I've had to apply for a visa altogether into Brazil, though on paper it's not required, but the airlines want it. So we must apply for it. Went to Panama to get a documentation from the embassy, though we don't need it, but the airlines want it. So when I get those documents, I hopefully can begin to move away from here and go back home. But if anyone is coming to Dominican Republic, at your own risk. They are racist, they're very segregative, they are horrible, there's language barrier, they are just terrible people.
How was the experience like?
So this is Bishop Joshua Maponga, who is a Zimbabwean and a Pan-Africanist. He is a philosopher, he is a writer, he is a motivational speaker, and almost everyone across the length and breadth of Africa may have listened to him before. He is very vibrant in Pan-Africanism, and he was deported from Dominican Republic back to Jamaica. So he's sharing his experience on what he went through during those times and those periods when he was in detention for 4 days. So let's keep watching.
Like being locked up for 4 days, man.
I think it is slave trade on steroids. That you can be having credit cards in your hands. You can be a door, literally from where they locked me up, the door which was selling food was like where that tree is. And they would put guards here not to make sure that I don't go there and buy food.
My goodness.
And just sit there. My embassy called. They wrote a letter. I can show you the letter to release, but they just said their own ambassador for Dominican Republic, who is in Cuba, liaised with my embassy to say release that man. They still refused. So I became a prisoner in the Caribbean. And where I was, by the way, Domingo means the dogs of God. And this is the place where also the slaves would arrive and be kept in prisons there, and then distributed in parts of the Caribbean, including here where we are. So I felt that maybe it was more as a spiritual thing that I had to experience this, but it was horrible. It was horrible.
But you came to Jamaica with a visa too, right?
Yes.
And then when you arrived, the same visa should have allowed you to enter again.
And again, this whole visa thing is a big scam. It's just a polite way of managing, sanctioning people, restricting movement of people, prioritizing your own national interest above everyone else's interests, and making sure that Africans don't speak to each other. Because if you notice the countries that have most of the visa restrictions, like when I was there, do you have an American, because they said, do you have an ID? And guess me, being me, I produced my South African ID. No, do you have another ID? Then I produced my Zimbabwean ID. No, these are not IDs. On my face.
So what is an ID?
No, an ID is an American ID, a European ID, a British ID, or a Canadian ID. Those are the IDs. Those are IDs. The rest of this is not ID. That's not ID. But he said he wanted an ID. And me being me, I said, how can you say another sovereign country's ID is not an ID when you ask for an ID, and what do you think this is? It's not written national identity card? No, when we talk about ID, we only mean America, Britain, and Canada.
I think it's extremely hell to travel in the Caribbean as an African.
And West, I think our brothers here and sisters have been brainwashed also to be suspicious.
Yeah, so this is very true. As Africans, it's quite difficult to travel easily around the world. Looking at all those visa restrictions and whatnot, stereotyping and the rest, it is very difficult for Africans to travel freely around the world. These are very renowned people in Africa. Udemaya, who is a YouTuber, content creator, and Bishop Joshua Maponga, who is also a Pan-Africanist, and looking at the struggles that they are going through in order for them to be able to move freely around the globe. How much more people like us who do not have any connections anywhere or have not really made any huge impact in society, it will be very difficult to move freely around the globe. Let's keep watching.
Yep.
Towards their own brothers, and it's sad, because just imagine the Caribbean in its totality, maybe it houses a couple of millions of people. If you can take the amount of human resource in the Caribbean on its own, and they could focus at servicing Africa, there's no one in the Caribbean who should be out without a job. Highly skilled job. America is harvesting from the Caribbean. Europe is harvesting from the Caribbean. Imagine the amount of resources we have in Africa. If the Caribbean could just open its borders and allow the trade of uranium, of gold, of platinum, power stations, allow the ships. And this really pisses me off, sorry for the language, that during slave trade, ships docked at Ghana there, docked at Gorée Island, docked at St. Helena, and moved straight to the Caribbean. Immediately slave was closed. To come back on the same route, you must do an extra 35,000 kilometers to the left and to the right. And to date, as we speak right now, there's no direct flight between all the islands and Mother Africa. Yet Gavi, yet Mali, we're all talking about repatriation and moving Africa. How do you move back home when you don't even have the transport? or the roots. I'm looking at all the Caribbean ministers. I'm looking at all the Caribbean presidents, all the Caribbean governors. You must be sick in your heads and wasting time sitting in your offices, smoking and burning taxpayers' money when you cannot deliver the tears of the ancestors who sleep on these grounds, who all they wanted was to go back home. And you'd sit in office and make sure that the citizens, the young people, the young generation, will not even know which route to go to Africa. Imagine a high school boy who simply wants to trace his routes, and he's told how many visas do you need just to get across the ocean. Why can't we make it easy? Imagine your son coming here to study, my daughter coming here to study, bringing me home a Jamaican husband, going there, bringing home a Zulu girl. Cultural integration would begin to neutralize this issue. But until we begin to have this conversation, and I'm glad me and you, as you representing the North, me representing the South, we're here to come and tell the fellow Caribbeans that you don't need to be strangers. We are your brothers and we are your sisters.
We are not criminals. See, anytime I pick up my passport that I'm about to travel within the Caribbean, I get scared. And I've been talking about it. People even felt like I was making their countries look bad. But I'm so glad that you also experienced
I'm not making their country look bad. I'm just relating what happened. And the beautiful part is that when you travel and you don't have a big poster on your forehead that says Bishop Maponga J, and with a CV of what he has done, what he's doing, the media and what, and movies, and the amount of influence that he has, then all of a sudden people must now treat you nicely because you are carrying the credentials. Exactly. Okay, so what happens to the common person?
Exactly. This is what I've been preaching. That I know all the people that will make my travel easy for me, but I'm not interested. Recently something happened to me. I was going to Antigua and Bermuda, and then I applied for a visa. They didn't even check. All they saw was an African.
This is 2 days ago.
This is 2 days ago. All they saw was an African applying for a visa, and they denied me. Like, my $150 was just gone. And funny enough, I posted it, and the Prime Minister himself came to respond that you got this reaction because recently I think over 100 Africans came into our shores and they were illegal. And because of that, any African that applies for a visa, we deny. I'm like, you deny without even checking.
It's stereotyping. Stereotyping, and they're already wired like that. They already with this. You see, when I lambast my African political leaders, that you are Uncle Toms, you are stooges who are managing the colonial system to benefit to you, to the sacrificing of the community that is under you. Because under common normal circumstances, it does not make sense that an all-black government, all black, could sit around and manage the same colonial rules that oppressed them. Now they are responsible for managing the same rules. How can you expect the laws that oppressed you to liberate you? How does it happen? The man that raped you and abused you, he comes around and says, now I'll help you to heal. I'll help you to heal. Don't worry, I'll clean you up. I'll get a doctor for you. That's sadistic of the highest order. If you have done what you have done, just step away. Let me hang around my own relatives and fix this mess. But for us to think that the Western world and the Northern world will have solutions for the Caribbean, will have solutions for Africa, we must be smoking. And I'm glad we're in Jamaica. We must be smoking something very strong.
After being here, what would you say that will be a solution for both Africa and the Caribbean?
The first idea that I was talking to Brother Clinton here, my beautiful friend that I've found for the past few days, is to start organizing African games between the Caribbean and Africa, business symposiums, young entrepreneurs who can begin to come across the ocean, transport transactions, commodity movement, but for a start, even cultural exchange programs. I want to actually open up a cultural center in Jamaica here and then call other African spiritual people to service the black community within the Caribbean who badly need spiritual guidance in one way or the other, which has gone far into Catholicism, far into Rastafarianism and etc., far into Christianity and etc. And Jamaica on its own has the highest population of churches in the Caribbean. How many per square kilometer? Community, don't listen to politicians. There are more business opportunities in Africa.
So
All you
this
young ladies
is
who think that
Bishop
they're not meant to marry,
Joshua
hey,
Maponga,
before you give up on
and
life,
these
get
are
the
the
passport.
reasons why he was
Exactly.
Am
deported
I lying?
from
No,
Dominican
you're not
Go
lying
Republic
get
at all.
yourself in Nigeria and
back to
Ghana and Zimbabwe with
Jamaica,
some
and
nice
he shares his
bananas, some
experience with
Zulu
us.
chief
Let me know
and
your
strong young men, and get
thoughts
yourself married.
in the
And then,
comment section
and
below.
vis-a-vis, this is the kind
Hit the
of
subscribe
that
button
we have
down
come here
there.
to tell
Click
you that
on the
you
subscribe
can come
button
to the,
as
and this is a
well.
beautiful story, I think.
Yep.
I'd
We
like
have
to
come
see
here to say
you in the next
there
video.
are people here,
Peace out.
and we are